The rain came down in sheets, blurring the neon lights of downtown Seattle into a kaleidoscope of regret. Ethan Carter stood frozen on the sidewalk, his phone trembling in his hand as his mother's voice, sharp, unyielding, echoed through the speaker. "It's for your sister's happiness. Ethan, don't be selfish." Selfish. The word cut deeper than the November chill, slicing through years of sacrifices he'd made for a family that never seemed to see him. At 25, Ethan had built a life most would envy, a modest but cozy house in Capitol Hill, a steady job as a graphic designer, and a quiet pride in being the first openly gay man in his conservative family. But tonight, that life felt like a house of cards teetering on collapse. His parents had just demanded he foot the bill for his sister Lily's extravagant $300,000 dream trip to Europe with her new boyfriend, a trip they called a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for her, but which Ethan knew was just another reckless whim. Lily, at 22, had a knack for getting what she wanted, and their parents were her eternal enablers. Ethan's chest tightened as he ended the call, rain dripping from his dark hair into his eyes. He'd already given so much college funds drained to cover Lily's failed boutique venture. Weekends spent fixing her messes while his own dreams gathered dust. But this was a new low. $300,000 was more than he'd saved in years, more than the equity in the house he'd scraped and clawed to buy. And yet, his parents' tone made it clear refusal wasn't an option. Across the street, a familiar figure emerged from the drizzle. Lucas Hayes, Ethan's boyfriend of 2 years, his blonde hair catching the glow of a street lamp. At 26, Lucas was the calm to Ethan's storm, a social worker with a heart too big for his own good. "You look like you're carrying the world," Lucas said softly, crossing to Ethan's side. His hand found Ethan's, warm despite the cold. "What did they do this time?" Ethan let out a bitter laugh, the kind that hit a sob. "They want me to pay for Lily's fantasy vacation. All of it. And if I don't," he trailed off, the weight of his parents' expectations pressing down. Lucas's blue eyes darkened with concern, but before he could speak, Ethan's phone buzzed again. A text from his father. "We're coming by tomorrow to discuss the house. It's an asset we can use." The house. His house. The one he'd poured every spare dollar into. The one where he and Lucas had painted the walls together, laughing over cheap wine and bad playlists. A sick feeling twisted in Ethan's gut. They wouldn't dare. Would they? The next morning, Ethan woke to the smell of coffee and the sight of Lucas at the kitchen table, scrolling through his phone with a frown. "You didn't sleep," Lucas said. Not a question. Ethan shrugged, slumping into a chair. His parents' visit loomed like a storm cloud, and he couldn't shake the memory of their casual mention of using his house. What did that even mean? A loan? A sale? The thought made his skin crawl. When the doorbell rang, Ethan's heart sank. His parents, Margaret and Tom Carter, stood on the porch, their faces a mix of determination and false warmth. Lily trailed behind, her designer purse swinging carelessly. "Ethan, honey," Margaret began, her voice syrupy. "We need to talk about family priorities." Tom nodded, his eyes scanning the living room like it was a commodity. Lucas stood silently by Ethan's side, his presence a quiet anchor. The conversation unraveled quickly. Margaret laid out their plan. Ethan would liquidate his savings to fund Lily's trip. And if that wasn't enough, they'd suggested leveraging his house. "It's just sitting here," Tom said, as if Ethan's home was a piggy bank to crack open. Lily chimed in, her voice petulant. "You're doing fine. Ethan, why can't you just help me out?" Ethan's hands clenched. "This is my home. I worked for it. I'm not selling it for your Instagram vacation." The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. Lucas's hand brushed against his. A silent "I'm here." But Margaret's eyes narrowed. "You've always been so stubborn," she said. "This is about family. Don't make us take steps." "Steps?" Ethan's voice cracked. "What steps?" Tom's silence was answer enough. Later that night, after they'd left, Lucas found Ethan staring at a stack of mortgage papers he'd dug out, his face pale. "They can't do anything without my signature," Ethan said, but his voice wavered. Lucas pulled him close. "We'll figure this out. Together." The next day, Ethan called his bank, his stomach in knots. The clerk's words hit like a punch. Someone had inquired about his mortgage, requesting paperwork to explore refinancing options. The request hadn't come from him. Ethan's blood ran cold. His parents had gone behind his back, poking into his finances, testing how far they could push. The betrayal stung worse than any demand for money. Lucas, ever the optimist, suggested they confront the Carters head-on. "They need to hear you, Ethan. Really hear you." But Ethan wasn't so sure. His family had never listened, not when he came out at 17. Not when he begged for support during college. Not now. Still, Lucas's faith in him was a lifeline, and Ethan clung to it. They agreed to invite his parents over again, this time to set boundaries. But as the meeting loomed, Ethan couldn't shake the fear that this was only the beginning. The Seattle sky was gray, mirroring Ethan's mood as he and Lucas prepared for his parents' second visit. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a battleground. Ethan paced the living room, his fingers tracing the edge of a photo frame, him and Lucas at last year's Pride, laughing under a rainbow flag. That moment felt like another lifetime. Lucas, sensing Ethan's spiral, set down a tray of coffee mugs. "We've got this," he said, his voice steady. "You're not alone." Ethan nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. His parents had already crossed a line by snooping into his mortgage. What else were they capable of? The thought made his chest ache, not just for himself, but for the family he'd once believed in. When Margaret and Tom arrived, Lily wasn't with them. Her absence felt ominous, like a chess piece moved off the board for a bigger play. Margaret's smile was tight, her eyes darting to the hardwood floors as if appraising their value. Tom carried a folder, its edges worn, and Ethan's stomach dropped. "We've been thinking," Tom began, settling into a chair like he owned the place. "Your sister's trip is non-negotiable. We found a way to make it work." Ethan's throat tightened. "I told you, I'm not paying for it. And my house is off limits." His voice shook, but Lucas's hand on his knee grounded him. Margaret leaned forward, her tone patronizing. "Ethan, you're not seeing the big picture. Lily's happiness is the family's happiness. We've spoken to a broker about your equity. It's a simple process." "A broker?" Ethan's voice rose, incredulity mixing with rage. "You went behind my back again. This is my home." Lucas's grip tightened, a silent plea for calm, but Ethan's blood was boiling. Tom opened the folder, revealing documents stamped with a bank's logo. "We just need your signature to start the process," he said, as if it were a grocery list and not Ethan's entire future. The audacity hit Ethan like a slap. "You think I'll just sign my life away for Lily's vacation?" His voice cracked, years of pent-up frustration spilling out. "I've given you everything, me savings, my time, my dreams, and you still treat me like I'm less than her." Margaret flinched, but her expression hardened. "Don't make this about you," she said. "This is about family duty." "Duty?" Ethan laughed, the sound raw and broken. "Where was your duty when I was 17? Crying in my room because you wouldn't look at me after I came out? Where was it when I worked 2 jobs to pay for college while you funded Lily's every whim? The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging heavy. Lucas's eyes shone with pride, but also worry. Tom's face reddened. "You're twisting things. Ethan, we've always supported you." But the lie was thin, and even Margaret looked away. Lucas spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter, Ethan's done nothing but support this family. Maybe it's time you respect his boundaries." Margaret's eyes narrowed at Lucas. "This is a family matter," she snapped. "You don't get a say." "He's my family," Ethan shot back, the words fierce. "More than you've ever been." The declaration hung in the air, a line drawn in the sand. Tom stood, clutching the folder. "We'll give you a few days to think it over," he said, but his tone carried a threat. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." After they left, Ethan collapsed onto the couch, his hands shaking. Lucas knelt beside him, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "You were incredible," Lucas whispered. "I'm so proud of you." But Ethan didn't feel incredible. He felt like a kid again, desperate for his parents' approval, only to be met with conditions. The next morning, Ethan woke to a voicemail from Lily. Her voice was saccharine, manipulative. "Ethan, I know you're upset, but this trip means everything to me. Please don't ruin it." He deleted it, his heart pounding. Lucas, already up, was researching legal protections for homeowners. "They can't force you to sign anything," he said. "But we need to be proactive. Maybe a lawyer." Ethan nodded, but the idea of fighting his own family in court made him sick. Still, Lucas's determination sparked something in Hema resolve to protect what he'd built, not just for himself, but for the life he and Lucas dreamed of. They spent the day digging into Ethan's mortgage details, confirming his parents had no legal claim. But the relief was short-lived. Late that night, Ethan's phone lit up with an email from his bank, a new inquiry about his property, this time requesting a full appraisal. His parents hadn't stopped. If anything, they were doubling down. Ethan stared at the screen, his mind racing. "What do they want from me?" he whispered. Lucas pulled him into a hug, his voice fierce. "They want control, but they're not getting it." As they sat together, planning their next move, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. He wasn't alone anymore. Lucas was his rock, his home, his reason to fight. But deep down, he knew this battle was far from over. His parents' betrayal was a wound that wouldn't heal easily, and Lily's shadow loomed larger than ever. Ethan couldn't sleep. The weight of his parents' betrayal pressed against his chest, each breath a reminder of the life he'd fought for now under siege. Lucas lay beside him, his steady breathing a contrast to Ethan's racing thoughts. By dawn, Ethan was at the kitchen table, staring at a legal aid website Lucas had bookmarked. The idea of lawyering up against his own family felt like a betrayal of its own. But what choice did they leave him? Lucas joined him, sliding a mug of coffee across the table. "You're up early," he said, his voice soft but laced with concern. Ethan managed a weak smile. Couldn't stop thinking about that appraisal email. "They're not giving up." Lucas nodded, his jaw tight. "Then neither do we. I called a friend who knows a property lawyer. She's willing to meet us today." The lawyer's office was a small, cluttered space in Belltown, smelling of old books and coffee. Sarah Nguyen, a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s, listened as Ethan recounted the saga his parents' demands, the mortgage inquiries, the folder of ominous documents. Her pen tapped against her notepad. "They have no legal standing to force a refinance or sale," she said. "But their persistence is troubling. We'll send a cease and desist letter to start. It's a clear message, back off." Ethan felt a flicker of relief, but it was fleeting. As they left Sarah's office, His phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Mom and Dad are just trying to help me. Why are you making this a war? The word stung, twisting the knife of guilt. Lily had always known how to play the victim, and Ethan had spent years falling for it. Not this time. Back home, Lucas suggested they take a break. Maybe grab dinner at their favorite diner. You need to breathe, he said, brushing a kiss against Ethan's temple. The diner was a warm haven, its retro booths and buzzing chatter a temporary escape. Over burgers, Lucas reached for Ethan's hand. I know this feels like the end of the world, he said, but we're building something real here. They can't take that from us. Ethan wanted to believe him, but the shadow of his family's actions loomed large. Halfway through their meal, his phone rang his mother. Against his better judgment, he answered. Margaret's voice was icy. Ethan, we've spoken to a realtor. Your house could cover Lily's trip and more. We're trying to help everyone. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. Help everyone. You're trying to steal my home. The diner went quiet, heads turning. Lucas's hand found his under the table, a steady anchor. Margaret didn't miss a beat. You're being dramatic. We're family. We share burdens. Ethan's laugh was hollow. I've carried your burdens my whole life. I'm done. He hung up, his heart pounding. Lucas's eyes were fierce with pride. That's my guy, he said softly. The next day, Sarah sent the cease and desist letter, but Ethan's unease grew. His parents hadn't responded, and their silence felt like the calm before a storm. He and Lucas decided to dig deeper, scouring public records for any moves his parents might have made. What they found chilled Ethan to the bone, a lien application filed against his property, initiated by Tom Carter, claiming Ethan owed the family money for past support. They're lying, Ethan whispered, staring at the screen. Lucas's face darkened. This is fraud. They're trying to strong-arm you. Sarah confirmed it over the phone. The lien was baseless, but fighting it would take time and money. Ethan felt like he was drowning. His home the one place he'd felt safe, now a pawn in his family's game. That night, Lucas cooked dinner, a rare attempt to lighten the mood. As they ate, Ethan opened up about his childhood, how he'd hidden his sexuality for years, fearing his parents' rejection, how Lily's charm had always overshadowed his quiet efforts. Lucas listened, his eyes soft. You're not that scared kid anymore, he said. You're stronger than they'll ever know. But strength felt fleeting when Ethan's phone lit up with another message from Lily. You're tearing us apart. Just sign the papers. The words hit like a punch, and for a moment, Ethan wondered if he was the selfish one. Lucas saw the doubt in his eyes and pulled him close. They're manipulating you, he said. But you're not alone in this. I'm with you. Always. As they cleaned up, Ethan's resolve hardened. He wouldn't let his family destroy what he'd built, not his home, not his relationship, not his sense of self. But the lien was a ticking time bomb, and he knew his parents wouldn't stop. With Lucas by his side, Ethan prepared to fight, not just for his house, but for the right to live his truth unapologetically. The Seattle rain hadn't let up in days, mirroring the storm brewing in Ethan's life. The lien against his house was a legal fiction, but its existence felt like a noose tightening around his neck. He and Lucas spent hours with Sarah, drafting documents to challenge the claim. But the process was grueling. Every phone call, every email, drained Ethan a little more, and the thought of his parents' betrayal burned like an open wound. Lucas, ever the optimist, tried to keep things light. One evening, he dragged Ethan to a local art gallery, a distraction from the chaos. The vibrant paintings and soft chatter offered a brief reprieve, but Ethan's mind kept drifting to the lien, to Lily's accusing texts, to his parents' relentless pressure. As they stood before a canvas of stormy blues, Lucas slipped his hand into Ethan's. "We're going to get through this," he said. "You're not losing your home." Ethan wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered. Back home, Sarah called with an update. The lien was under review. But Ethan's parents had hired a lawyer of their own, a slick, expensive one. "They're playing hardball," Sarah warned. "They're banking on you folding under pressure." Ethan's stomach churned. His parents weren't just fighting for Lily's trip. They were fighting to control him, to punish him for daring to say no. The next morning, Ethan found a letter slipped under his door. It was from Lily, handwritten, a rarity for her. "Ethan, I know you think I'm spoiled, but I need this trip. It's not just a vacation, it's my chance to prove I'm more than what everyone thinks. Please help me." The words tugged at Ethan's heart, stirring memories of the little sister he'd once protected. But the plea felt hollow. Another manipulation dressed up as vulnerability. Lucas read the letter over Ethan's shoulder, his jaw tight. "She's good," he said. "But this isn't about her proving anything. It's about them using you." Ethan nodded, crumpling the letter. "I know, but it still hurts." Lucas pulled him into a hug, his warmth a reminder that Ethan wasn't alone. "Let's focus on the fight," Lucas said. "We'll show them you're not backing down." Sarah's next call brought a glimmer of hope. The lien application had inconsistencies, and the bank was questioning its validity. But the relief was short-lived. That afternoon, Ethan's father showed up unannounced, his face a mask of false concern. "Ethan, we're worried about you," Tom said, stepping inside without invitation. Meant to intimidate. Lucas, ever practical, suggested they install security cameras around the house, just in case. Ethan agreed, though the thought of needing protection from his own family made him sick. As they lay in bed that night, Ethan traced the lines of Lucas's face, memorizing the strength in his eyes. "I don't deserve you," Ethan whispered. Lucas smiled, pulling him close. "You deserve everything, and we're going to make sure you get to keep it." For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a spark of hope. The fight was far from over, but with Lucas by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. The Seattle skyline glowed faintly through Ethan's bedroom window, a reminder of the city he'd made his homie a home now under siege. The rejected lien was a victory, but his parents' latest email, accusing him of breaching family trust, hung over him like a guillotine. Ethan sat at his desk, staring at the legal jargon, his mind racing. Lucas, sprawled on the couch with a law book, looked up. "We're stronger than they think," he said, his voice a quiet fire. Ethan nodded, but the weight of his family's betrayal felt heavier each day. Sarah, their lawyer, called with a plan: file a countersuit for harassment and fraud. "It's aggressive," she admitted, "but it'll show them you're serious." Ethan hesitated. Suing his parents felt like crossing a point of no return, severing the last threads of a family he'd once loved. Lucas, sensing his turmoil, sat beside him. "You're not the one breaking this family," he said. "They did that when they chose Lily's whims over your life." Ethan's social media post had shifted the narrative, drawing support but also exposing the rift. Messages poured in, friends offering to start a crowdfunding campaign, a local LGBTQ+ group inviting him to speak at their next meeting. But the hate came too, anonymous comments calling him ungrateful, selfish, a traitor to his family. Each one stung, but Lucas's steady presence kept Ethan grounded. "They don't know you," Lucas said, deleting a particularly vile message. "But I do." The next day, Ethan and Lucas met Sarah at a coffee shop to finalize the countersuit. Over steaming lattes, Sarah laid out the strategy. Document every instance of coercion, from the mortgage inquiries to the lien attempt. We're building a case that shows a pattern of manipulation, she said. Ethan's hands shook as he handed over emails, texts, even Lily's letter. It felt like betraying his family. But wasn't that what they'd done to him? As they left, Ethan's phone buzzed with a call from his mother. He almost ignored it, but Lucas nodded encouragingly. You've got this. Margaret's voice was softer than usual, almost pleading. Ethan, let's talk. Just us. No lawyers. No drama. Suspicion flared, but Ethan agreed to meet her at a neutral Spoda park near Lake Union. Lucas insisted on coming, staying at a distance for support. The park was quiet, the lake reflecting a rare patch of sunlight. Margaret sat on a bench, her hands clasped tightly. I don't want to fight you, she said as Ethan approached. We just want what's best for Lily. Ethan's jaw clenched. And what about what's best for me? He asked. Margaret's eyes flickered with guilt, but she pressed on. You've always been so independent. Lily needs us more. The words cut deep, confirming what Ethan had always feared in his parents' eyes. He was the disposable one. I'm your son too, he said, his voice breaking. But you're trying to take everything I've built. Margaret reached for his hand, but he pulled away. You don't have to make this a war, she said. Ethan stood, his resolve hardening. You made it one. Back home, Lucas wrapped him in a hug, letting Ethan's tears soak into his shirt. I'm so proud of you for standing up, he whispered. Ethan clung to him, the only constant in a world unraveling. That night, they finalized the countersuit papers with Sarah, each signature a step toward reclaiming Ethan's life. But the emotional toll was heavy. Ethan lay awake, haunted by his mother's words, wondering if he'd ever have a family again. The next morning, a new email arrived from Lily's boyfriend, Rihanna man Ethan had met only once, cocky and entitled. Ethan, let's be real. You're holding Lily back. Sign the papers, or we'll make this public. The threat was vague but chilling. Lucas's face darkened as he read it. He's bluffing, he said, but Ethan wasn't sure. Ryan's connections, wealthy friends. Social media clout could amplify the family's narrative, painting Ethan as the villain. Sarah advised caution but urged them to stay the course. They're trying to scare you, she said. Keep documenting everything. Ethan and Lucas spent the day gathering more evidence, screenshots of Ryan's email, records of his parents' bank inquiries, even old texts where Lily admitted to squandering money Ethan had lent her. The pile of betrayal grew, each piece a reminder of why Ethan had to fight. As the week ended, Ethan spoke at the LGBTQ+ groups meeting, his voice trembling but clear. He shared his story, not just the legal battle, but the pain of being erased by his family for being gay, for daring to live authentically. The room erupted in applause, and strangers hugged him, their support a balm to his wounds. Lucas stood at the back, his smile brighter than the Seattle sun. But as they walked home, hand in hand, Ethan's phone buzzed with a news alert. A local blog had published a story about his family's struggle to fund Lily's dream. The narrative was twisted, painting Ethan as the selfish brother standing in her way. Ryan's handiwork, no doubt. Ethan's heart sank, but Lucas squeezed his hand. Let them talk, he said. We'll tell the truth. The blog post spread like wildfire, its lies twisting Ethan's life into a caricature of greed and betrayal. Comments poured in, some sympathetic to Lily, others viciously attacking Ethan. Ungrateful son, one read. He's tearing his family apart for a house. Each word was a dagger, but Lucas was there, deleting the worst of them, his voice a steady anchor. They don't know you, Ethan. They don't know us. Ethan sat at his desk. The countersuit papers spread before him. Sarah had warned that the public narrative could complicate things. But the legal case was strong. The lien was dead, and the harassment claim was gaining traction. Still, Ethan felt exposed. His life laid bare for strangers to judge. Lucas, sensing his spiral, pulled him to the couch. "You're not alone in this," he said, his blue eyes fierce. "We're a team." The next day, Ethan received a call from an unexpected ally, his old college roommate, Mia, now a journalist at a local paper. "I saw the blog," she said. "It's garbage. Let me tell your side." Ethan hesitated. Going public again felt like pouring fuel on the fire, but Lucas nodded encouragingly. "The truth matters," he said. Ethan agreed, and Mia arranged an interview for the next day. The interview was raw, emotional. Ethan spoke about his childhood, the years of hiding his identity, the sacrifices he'd made for Lily. He talked about Lucas, how their love had given him the strength to fight. Mia listened, her pen flying across her notebook. "This is bigger than your family," she said. "It's about standing up for yourself, especially as a queer person." Ethan's throat tightened. For so long, he'd felt invisible. Now, his story might help others. The article went live 2 days later. Headlined, "Seattle Man Fights Family's Betrayal to Protect His Home." It was honest, unflinching, and it shifted the narrative. Support flooded in messages from strangers. Donations to a legal fund started by Mia's readers. But the backlash grew too. Lily posted a tearful video online, claiming Ethan was destroying her dreams. Ryan amplified it, his followers piling on with vitriol. Ethan's parents stayed silent, their absence louder than any words. Sarah called with news. The countersuit was moving forward, and she'd uncovered more dirt. Ethan's parents had tried to access his bank accounts, claiming they were family assets. The attempt had failed, but the audacity shook Ethan. "How far will they go?" he asked Lucas, his voice hollow. Lucas's jaw tightened. "As far as we let them. We're ending this." They decided to confront Lily directly. Ethan texted her, asking to meet at a neutral coffee shop. She agreed, arriving with Ryan, whose smug grin made Ethan's skin crawl. Lily's eyes were red, but her tone was defiant. "You've turned everyone against me," she said. Ethan took a deep breath. "You turned yourself against me when you let Mom and Dad try to take my home." Ryan leaned forward, his voice low. "Sign the papers, Ethan, or this gets uglier." Lucas, who'd been quiet, spoke up. "Threaten him again, and we'll bury you in court." Ryan blinked, caught off guard, and Lily's bravado faltered. For the first time, Ethan saw a crack in her facade. Guilt, maybe, or shame. But she said nothing, and they left. That night, Ethan and Lucas sat on their porch, the Seattle skyline glittering in the distance. "I thought family was supposed to lift you up," Ethan said, his voice soft. Lucas took his hand. "Sometimes you have to build your own family. And we're doing that, right here." Ethan smiled, the first real one in weeks. Lucas was his family, his home, his everything. Sarah's next update was a game changer. The bank had flagged Ethan's parents' actions as potential fraud, and an investigation was underway. The countersuit was gaining momentum, and the public's support was putting pressure on Lily and Ryan's narrative. But Ethan knew his parents wouldn't back down easily. A new email from their lawyer hinted at mediation, a last-ditch effort to avoid court. Ethan and Lucas prepared for the meeting, gathering every piece of evidence: bank records, texts, the blog post, Mia's article. Sarah coached them on staying calm, sticking to the facts. But as the day approached, Ethan's nerves frayed. What if his parents twisted the truth again? What if Lily's tears swayed the mediator? Lucas, ever steady, reminded him, we're fighting for our future. They can't take that from us. The mediation was set for a sterile conference room downtown. Ethan's heart pounded as he walked in, Lucas by his side. His parents sat across the table, their faces unreadable. Lily was there, but Ryan was absent, a small relief. The mediator, a stern woman named Clara, laid out the ground rules. Ethan took a deep breath, ready to fight for his home, his life, and the love that had carried him through the darkness. The mediation room was cold, its fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows on the faces around the table. Ethan sat beside Lucas, their hands clasped under the table, a silent vow of unity. Across from them, his parents sat rigid, Margaret's lips pursed, Tom's eyes fixed on the mediator. Lily fidgeted, her usual confidence replaced by unease. The air was thick with unspoken grudges, years of hurt compressed into this one moment. Clara, the mediator, began with a calm authority. We're here to find a resolution without escalating to court. Ethan, why don't you start? Ethan's throat tightened, but Lucas's steady grip gave him courage. My parents and sister have been trying to force me to fund Lily's $300,000 trip, he said, his voice steady. They've gone behind my back, tried to access my bank accounts, filed a false lien against my house. I just want them to stop. Margaret's face flushed. That's not fair, Ethan. We're trying to keep this family together. Her words dripped with self-righteousness, but Ethan didn't flinch. You've never cared about keeping me in this family, he said. You ignored me when I came out, drained my savings for Lily's failures, and now you're trying to take my home. That's not family, that's theft. The room went silent. Lily's eyes glistened, but she said nothing. Tom cleared his throat. We thought we were helping Lily's future. You've always been fine on your own. The dismissal stung, but Ethan was done seeking their approval. I'm not fine when you're stealing my life, he said. Lucas squeezed his hand. A quiet, I'm here. Clara turned to Margaret and Tom. You've heard Ethan's concerns. What's your response? Margaret leaned forward, her voice sharp. Ethan's making this about him, but it's about family sacrifice. He has resources we need. Lucas couldn't stay silent. Resources he earned, he said. You don't get to demand his home for Lily's vacation. That's not sacrifice, it's manipulation. Lily finally spoke, her voice small. I didn't know it would go this far, she said. I just wanted the trip. Ethan's heart twisted, part of him wanted to believe her, but the evidence was clear. You knew, he said. You let them lie, let them threaten me. You chose yourself over me. Lily looked away, tears falling, but offered no defense. Clara steered the conversation toward solutions. Ethan's demands were simple: drop all claims on his house, cease contact unless invited, and acknowledge the harm done. Margaret scoffed. You're cutting us off. After everything we've done. Ethan's laugh was bitter. Everything you've done. Like ignoring me for being gay. Like treating me as a bank instead of a son. The mediator pressed for compromise, but Ethan's parents refused to budge. They insisted on family unity, a code for Ethan's compliance. Clara warned that court was the next step, and Ethan's countersuit backed by evidence of fraud and harassment would likely hold. Tom's face hardened. We'll see you in court. Then, he said, standing. Margaret followed, but Lily lingered, her eyes on Ethan. I'm sorry, she whispered before leaving. The words haunted Ethan as he and Lucas drove home. Was she sorry? Or was it another ploy? Lucas, sensing his turmoil, turned up their favorite song, letting the music fill the silence. At home, They collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion settling in. "You were incredible," Lucas said, his voice warm. "You stood up for yourself. For us." Ethan leaned into him, the weight of the day easing in his arms. Sarah called the next morning with an update. The bank's fraud investigation was expanding, and Ethan's parents were facing scrutiny. The countersuit was strong, but court would be a battle. Ethan felt torn. Part of him wanted to punish them. Part of him just wanted peace. Lucas, ever practical, suggested they focus on protecting their future. "Let's make this house ours," he said. "Really ours." They spent the weekend painting the guest room, a small act of reclaiming their space. As they worked, Ethan opened up about his fears of losing his home, of never healing from his family's betrayal. Lucas listened, his brush pausing. "You're not losing anything," he said. "You're gaining freedom. And I'm with you. Every step." The next week, Mia's article gained national attention, picked up by a major outlet. Ethan's story resonated, sparking conversations about family dynamics and queer resilience. Support poured in, but so did threats from Ryan's followers. Sarah advised a restraining order, and Ethan agreed, though the thought of needing one against his sister's boyfriend broke his heart. As the court date loomed, Ethan and Lucas prepared, their bond stronger than ever. The Seattle rain had stopped, and sunlight streamed through their windows, a rare gift. Ethan looked at Lucas, painting a wall with a goofy grin, and felt a surge of love. This was his family, his home. No matter what came next, they'd face it together. The courtroom was a sterile box of nerves, its walls echoing with the weight of Ethan's fight. He sat beside Lucas, their hands clasped tightly, Sarah on his other side, her briefcase a fortress of evidence. Across the aisle, his parents sat with their lawyer, their faces unreadable. Lily was absent, a relief and a wound. The judge, a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, called the case Ethan Carter versus Margaret and Tom Carter. Sarah presented their case with precision: the false lien, the unauthorized bank inquiries, the harassment. She showed texts, emails, the blog post, and Mia's article, painting a clear picture of manipulation. Ethan's heart pounded as he took the stand, his voice steady but raw. "I just wanted to live my life," he said. "But they tried to take everything me home, my savings, my peace, because I wouldn't fund my sister's trip." His parents' lawyer countered, framing Ethan as ungrateful, a son who'd abandoned his family. Margaret took the stand, her voice trembling with rehearsed emotion. "We only wanted to help Lily," she said. "Ethan's always been so selfish." The words cut, but Ethan met Lucas's eyes, drawing strength from his unwavering support. Lucas had been there through every tear, every doubt, every victory. The judge's questions were sharp, exposing gaps in his parents' story. Why had they filed a baseless lien? Why pursue Ethan's assets without consent? Tom's answers were evasive, and Margaret's composure cracked. The courtroom felt like a crucible, burning away the lies. When Sarah presented evidence of the bank's fraud investigation, the room shifted. The judge's expression hardened, and Ethan felt a flicker of hope. After hours of testimony, the judge ruled the countersuit was upheld. The Carters were ordered to cease all claims on Ethan's property, pay legal fees, and face penalties for attempted fraud. A restraining order was granted against Ryan, whose threats had escalated online. Ethan's parents sat stunned, their lawyer whispering furiously. Ethan felt no triumph, only a hollow relief. He'd won, but at what cost? Outside, Lucas pulled him into a hug, the Seattle air crisp with promise. "You did it," he whispered. "You protected our home." Ethan clung to him, tears falling. "I couldn't have done it without you," he said. Lucas smiled, brushing a tear from Ethan's cheek. We're a team. Remember? The next week was a blur of healing. Mia's article had sparked a movement, with Ethan invited to speak at more LGBTQ+ events. He shared his story, not just of the legal battle, but of finding strength in Lucas's love, the community's love, his own self-love. The support was overwhelming, a reminder that family could be chosen, not just inherited. Lily reached out once. A hesitant email. I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't understand how much this hurt you. He didn't respond. Not yet. The wound was too fresh. But Lucas encouraged him to keep the door open. Just a crack. She might grow, he said. People can change. Ethan wasn't sure, but Lucas's hope was contagious. The bank's investigation led to fines for his parents, a final nail in their campaign. They moved to a smaller house, their pride dented. Ethan heard through Mia that Lily had broken up with Ryan, her dream trip abandoned. Part of him pitied her, but he was done carrying her weight. His life was his own now, and he intended to live it fully. One evening, Ethan and Lucas hosted a small gathering at their house, their home. Truly theirs now. Friends filled the rooms, laughter echoing off the walls they'd painted together. Ethan looked around, his heart full. This was what he'd fought for, not just a house, but a life built on love, trust, and resilience. Lucas caught his eye, raising a glass in a silent toast. Ethan smiled, raising his own. As the night wound down, they stood on the porch, the city lights twinkling below. What's next for us? Ethan asked, his voice soft. Lucas grinned, pulling him close. Everything, he said. A wedding, maybe. A dog. Whatever we want. Ethan laughed, the sound free and light. For the first time, he believed it. They'd faced the worst and come out stronger. Together. The Seattle sky was clear, stars piercing the darkness. Ethan took Lucas's hand, their fingers intertwining. The fight had been brutal, but it had forged something unbreakably, a love that could withstand betrayal. A home that was truly theirs. A future they'd write on their own terms. And as they stood there, wrapped in each other, Ethan knew no one could take that away.